gigantesco iceberg del tamaño de Luxemburgo se desprendió de la Antártida.
Los manifestantes han empezado una nueva vida en esta plaza.
Gaddafi será enterrado en Misrata siguiendo los preceptos del Islam.
Mientras que las Naciones Unidas declara estado de hambruna en el centro y sur de Somalia.
La Obra Social CajaCanarias presenta el foro Enciende la Tierra. Steve McCurry, Sami Nair, Dima Katif y Federico Mayor Zaragoza, entre otros, abordando el calentamiento global, la primavera árabe o el paisaje humano después de las guerras. Obra Social CajaCanarias, Banca Cívica.
Gracias en nombre de la Obra Social de CajaCanarias por acompañarnos en este espacio de diálogo humanista que llamamos Enciende la Tierra. Imagino que aparte de Steve, pocas personas en esta sala habrán experimentado la barbarie, el horror de las guerras. Y sin embargo la guerra forma parte de nuestra vida cotidiana, nos levantamos con ella en los periódicos, almorzamos con ella, cenamos con ella. Y de alguna forma todas estas imágenes van insensibilizando, van adormeciendo y anestesiando nuestra mirada. Ver debería ser otra cosa. Ver debería ser una extensión del verbo sentir, o como dijo Emilio Lledó en este mismo espacio, ver nos debería llevar a creer que el mundo no es una tragedia lejana, sino que de alguna forma nos toca. Un día, a mediados de los años 70, Steve McCurry abandonó un trabajo seguro en un periódico en Filadelfia como fotógrafo para ahorrar un poco de dinero, comprar 300 carretes y abordar un viaje que iba a cambiar para siempre su vida. Él habla de este viaje iniciático a India, en donde vivió espartanamente, apenas con $5 al día, viviendo en pensiones indescriptibles, padeciendo todo tipo de enfermedades, arriesgando en algunos momentos su vida, pero lo que iba a encontrar cambió su vida para siempre. Lo que iba a encontrar es la conexión con el otro, la conexión con el mundo, algo que no hubiera encontrado de ninguna manera, él lo ha dicho, en los Estados Unidos. Y esa experiencia fue una llave que abrió de alguna manera una puerta que nunca volvería a cerrar. Este espacio que hemos creado para las imágenes y para las palabras, Enciende la Tierra, debe ser sobre todo un espacio de preguntas. Y ¿acaso alguno de los participantes en las ponencias que están anunciadas, acaso alguna de las imágenes de este fotógrafo que nos ha dado las imágenes más compasivas del ser humano, puedan acercarnos al encuentro con el otro, que es una forma de saber en el fondo quiénes somos? Les dejo con Steve McCurry, uno de esas personas que realmente encienden la Tierra desde el compromiso con los seres humanos, sobre todo con aquellos que son más desfavorecidos. Sin más, reciban a Steve McCurry con un aplauso. Gracias.
Thank you very much for coming. This is a great honor to have such a wonderful exhibition in this upstairs. I hope you've all had a chance to look at it. The Canary Islands is one of those places where, once you come here, you kind of wonder, why didn't I come here before? I should have come here 20 or 30 years ago and spent some time and made some pictures. But and again, by the way, I apologize for giving this talk in English. I studied Spanish in school, but that was such a long time ago that I think we would have trouble trying to muddle my way through with Spanish. My first travel really was to Europe in 1969. And it was during that trip, I spent a year in Europe. I started passed through Spain. I was in UK and Germany and Switzerland, and ended up working at a hotel in Amsterdam and one in Sweden. And it was during that trip that I sort of caught the travel bug and decided that whatever I did in my life, I wanted travel to be a part of it. And I went to school, kind of took various classes. Then I kind of took a class in filmmaking. And that really kind of inspired me, and I thought, this is exactly what I want to spend my life doing, is making movies, making documentary films. Within a couple months, I took another class in photography, and then that's when I really suddenly decided the film isn't what I want to do. It's really photography. Photography, unlike film, allows you to, it's more spontaneous, allows you to kind of wander and explore on your own. You can literally, walk out the door of your home or hotel or whatever and work without any script or any preconceived ideas. It's very immediate. There's a kind of a serendipity quality to it. So I put together some pictures, probably too many pictures. And by the way, I wish that the people on this side in the corners, it's going to be a bit tough to see the pictures, but maybe I can describe them to you as we show them. The show is really kind of my favorite pictures, which I feel really represent why I love to travel and what it is about cultures and people and places like Tibet and India, which I've so been attracted to and so sort of passionate about going to these places and documenting cultures which are really quickly disappearing. It's amazing. When I first went to India in 1978, and where it's, the transition from then to now really is quite dramatic, and so many things that I saw and photographed back then have completely disappeared. So in a way, although I never really thought of myself as a historian, there is that kind of element to documenting the way we are, the way we were, and to have some memory of that. So anyway, let me actually start with the pictures. Afterward, we're going to have a Q&A if you have any questions about how I work or where I've gone, or comments or complaints. Feel free to ask at that time. And then after that, there's going to be a book signing in the lobby, and we'll have a chance to meet again. So if we could kind of lower the lights, I'd like to go ahead and sort of jump right in. Is there a way to cut that light down just a bit, please? That one that's in my eyes? Maybe not. Anyway, okay, we'll work with what we have here. I never thought it was that. In fact, I'm going to, during rehearsal, we actually rehearsed quite a bit yesterday. It's a joke. I noticed that if I'm here, the people can't really see the picture. So I'm going to actually go back a bit so that these people can see the. Oh, I can't do that because this is there is supposed to be a microphone. Hello? Can you hear me? Okay. Anyway. So part of my fascination with Asia is, in part, all this mix of religions and culture, and Hindus and Muslims and Buddhists and Christians and the Sikhs, that kind of goes on. And all of these religions have different festivals and holidays. This is one, a Hindu holiday. For me, the color is really incidental. I really, always been more attracted to the story, the expression, the human element to the picture. These are so undeniably color pictures. So, but there's an incredible Hindu festival called Holi where they throw color and they get drunk and they dance, and it goes on. And if you happen to be out there with your camera, well, you become a target, and suddenly you're covered in color too. This is one of my favorite places in Rajasthan. This is a funny kind of situation, and I always felt that this, in a way, was kind of symbolic of, me, the foreigner, in these cultures, in these air-conditioned cars and hotels, and then the rest of the population is out there kind of suffering in the elements. I did a story on the monsoon, and this is how it kind of started, very dry, dusty. This is actually the exhibition. It's a situation where I was walking through this village, Jodhpur, and I saw these handprints which were there. It was just some kind of kids putting their handprints on the wall. But it looked to me like an interesting pattern, and I thought, and this was a very busy alleyway with lots of people coming and going. I thought, if I can just wait, I can create a picture with people coming and going. So I stood there for an hour or two and then went back again the next day and continue to try and work this situation. A lot of photography is simply observation and waiting and being able to kind of capture the right moment at the right time and the right light, the right composition. I talked about the monsoon and trying to document this most dramatic weather phenomenons where it either rains too much or not enough, and there's always a flood or drought, and there's always some, dramatic. This is city of Varanasi, which floods frequently, and people just live their lives. They just continue to go to work, and you can see it's a husband and wife. She's going to the market and he's going to work, and that's, what can they do? They can't, just. This is, just to kind of make a long story short, the people who manufacture this sewing machine, there's a German company, they recognized their sewing machine and actually found this man later on and sent him a new sewing machine. So in a way, it was a great kind of way to help this guy, even though I wasn't aware of it at the time. That's me a long time ago, trying to make pictures in Nepal. You can just see that it's there's really always, it's such a visual, dramatic. This is a case where there was a festival, and in fact, I wasn't supposed to be photographing, but after about 4 or 5 hours, the policeman came over to me and says, "You're not supposed to be here. Get out." So I left, but by that time I'd already made, a couple hundred pictures. Another story I worked on, which I think is was one of my most important, one of the most enjoyable stories, was working with the writer Paul Theroux, the travel writer, and we did this story going across the subcontinent, and nobody had ever photographed or juxtaposed the Taj Mahal with these old steam locomotives. And as I was kind of wandering on, I recognized that if I, with a particular lens and waiting and getting the right moment, I could actually get the two in the right frame, and then ended up on the cover of the Geographic. A lot of pictures are just, you just have to be there at the right time, and it requires a lot of patience. One of the things we're always confronted with is photographing a piece of iconic architecture, such as the Taj Mahal, and trying to see it in a new and fresh way, and not a kind of a postcard version. So I spent quite a bit of time walking around and looking at it from different angles, and photographing it. I mean, to me, this is a scene that potentially could have been shot, 100 years ago, because there's no tourists. It's just villagers harvesting their crop. Calcutta, quite an extraordinary place. These are some portraits of, I've always loved faces and people and how they, their personalities and their life story is sort of written on their face. And Indians particularly, I guess maybe the only other nationality I can think of that has such a dramatic look, or the Afghans. This is an old sort of magician who I photographed in Rajasthan. Occasionally you get lucky and the colors all come together. And the thing I like about this picture is that you have that really wonderful, the umbrella and the shape of her hand and how they kind of mimic each other. This is sort of a street performer who is trying to make some money by his performance. There's these laugh clubs in India, which is sort of a yogic exercise, and they get and they laugh really hard, and they do this every morning at 6 or 7 o'clock. Varanasi, Bombay. This I just put these two pictures in. You can kind of see the disparity between very rich. This is they have these home and they have all these cars, and then you kind of contrast, these rich people with the literally, I would say, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people who live on the street, sleep on the street, eat on the street. One of the dramatic sort of industries or these shipbreaking yards where they literally drive the ships up on the beach and then proceed to cut them apart for scrap metal. And this ship will slowly just be cut apart until there's nothing left. It's in Bombay. I was doing a story on India where I was looking for a way to illustrate overpopulation. So this was like the perfect it's the Kumbh Mela. This is really the largest gathering of humanity anywhere in the world since the beginning of time. There's 15, 20 million people that come and bathe, not at the same day, but over the course of a month. And the stars are these Hindu holy men called sadhus, and they're very revered and very respected, and they all smoke a lot of hashish and do yoga, and they're the ones who are able to bathe at the most auspicious time. And another story I did was in Kashmir, a very beautiful place in northern India, but also has had a very troubled recent past because it's been fought over by India and Pakistan. One of the themes in my work, which I've been kind of looking at since the beginning of my photography, is people sleeping. And it just fascinates me how we all kind of find different places to sleep, and sometimes very kind of unlikely. This is in Bangkok. So I just, every time I see somebody sleeping, I just click a few pictures. At Los Angeles, Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles, Yemen, Thailand, China again, Afghanistan, India, Afghanistan, Burma. I have a fascination with, I just ran across a woman like this in Burma just a few weeks ago, and I'm just so astonished at how, their faith and the way they get around, and they often will go to the temples. I love this picture because, again, it's a woman who's, trying to cross the street, and you have kind of, this part of life and the phase of her life, and on the other side you have the beginning of life. It's sort of a little story and couples. I've always been attracted to couples wherever they happen to be. This is Kashmir, Mauritania, nearby here actually. The Vatican, the Pantheon in Rome, and Zagreb, Tibet, Thailand, Yemen, New York, Montenegro, Yemen, Afghanistan, Slovenia, Uganda, Zagreb, Shanghai, Istanbul. I like that cat, by the way. I always, anytime there's a cat, I always, or a dog, I'm a sucker for animals. Hong Kong, Yemen, Germany, Belgrade, Havana, Dublin, Madrid. Not actually a couple, but there's sort of a couple. This old lady, and this is in Burma. Back to Dublin, Berlin, Havana, Rome. I think that's where it stops there. These are some pictures from Burma. If you ask me where my favorite places to photograph, or actually just to be, Burma would certainly be at the top of my list. Even without a camera, it's the kind of place it's just a wonderful vibe and wonderful culture and wonderful people. This is actually a cement statue, and it's a revered, it was a venerable monk. They made it into commemorate him in the statue, and they, in order to pay their respects, and he was a heavy smoker, I guess, so they hold cigarettes up to his mouth. Inlay Lake, Mandalay. One of the great personalities I've ever photographed is Aung San Suu Kyi, who was under house arrest for, 25, I think she really was arrested the first time in 1988 and was only recently released. So probably I would say, is there anybody else in the world that has her sort of the respect and has done so much for her country? These are all pictures from Burma, which again, I just was there recently. And these are these long neck women. This is a monastery. I ended up staying so long that they actually ended up kicking me out. They said, you've been here too long and you're disturbing the monastery, so you have to go. Some pictures of people playing football. This is on Australia. I just love the shapes of these two kids. Unfortunately, the other kids are sniffing glue, which is kind of disturbing, but this is back to Burma. This is the monastery where they eventually evicted me. Angkor Wat. Again, you're there. It's this sort of, you feel like you're back in time, and these temples, which I saw this child as I was in the car, and I just told the driver to stop, and I jumped out and ran over with my camera. I think I probably scared this kid to death, but I just love that little tuft of hair. It looks like kind of like a comma or something. Again, sorry I have probably way too many pictures, but I couldn't figure out which ones to edit out, so I figured I'll just bring them all, you know. There's a funny story about sending this picture to my dentist after I got back home to New York. I had a dentist appointment, and I made a print because I don't know how many tens of thousands of dollars I've spent on my teeth, but I think she... I love this picture, but the story is really boring, so I'm not going to go into it. Japan. One of the great places in the world, if you happen to be in Tokyo, is the Tokyo Fish Market. It's really an extraordinary... Every morning it's at 4 o'clock a.m., and they lay out all these tuna, and each one is worth, I don't know, some of them are worth 10,000 euros, some are worth many, many times that. I had a trip planned to Japan, and I had originally planned to go to Kyoto. When I got to Tokyo, I thought, I can't go to, I have to go and shoot. I have to go and document the tsunami. I couldn't, you know, so I ended up spending several days. It's a tragic situation, but there's a kind of, it's sort of, this home is completely washed away, and the only thing left was the toilet. I mean, you can see just the entire neighborhood. This whole neighborhood was empty. There wasn't one person. This is actually this was one of my guides. The cemetery, and you know, people's family albums were just, this entire family was killed. Cuba is another kind of a must-see place, and it's going to change at some point. And I just, the whole feeling of being back in the 1950s is really something that's extraordinary. This little boy who was just being tormented by, we were just walking down the street in this village, and I saw this child weeping, and I walked over, and he put this toy, it was a toy gun, to his head, and my translator, we were trying to figure out what was the problem, but I think in the end it was his friends who were nearby were just kind of tormenting him. And China, this is one of the concentration camps in Poland, which there's some Zen practitioners that go and do practice there. I've really had this lifelong, practically, interest in Buddhism. So these are pictures that from various trips, various workshops, various assignments that I've kind of put together. This is Eastern Tibet in September. This is a kind of a giant monk. You can see this guy was enormous. They worked in the kitchen, and I asked them if I could step out in the alleyway and get their picture. But Tibetans really have this sort of natural flair, this sense of even though they don't get this out of a magazine, they just love to dress up with big hats and colorful shirts and this, you know, heavy makeup. Somebody asked me recently, how does this guy light a cigarette? Which is a good question. This is in Lourdes. It's a series of portraits of people I photographed. This is in Niger. This is in Piazza Navona in Rome. Honduras. This is India. This is a premature baby who's in an incubator. And I just, it was just, one of these pictures where you couldn't, he's like he's holding the stethoscope and he has his hand and he looks like he's smiling, and it's just a kind of a joyful picture. We've seen her before. These are, again, this is New York. I did a project on the last roll of Kodachrome, and one of the first picture I made was of Robert De Niro. It was Sri Lanka. This is quite a remarkable way they fish. And one of the great things about traveling is that you can see how, we're all very similar, we're all kind of this, but we all do things in different ways, different languages, but fundamentally this is also upstairs in the show. This is in Beirut, 1982, I think. It's Yemen. This is women who are cutting grass, this sort of for their animals. It's like a fodder for their animals. And some kind of weird folk medicine where they actually believe that if they make an incision and draw the blood out, this will somehow cure whatever, ails you. They have this kind of mild narcotic, or sort of like, I didn't try it, but they said it's like drinking a few espressos right together, and they kind of get a small kind of a buzz out of it. But they walk around with their jaw extended all afternoon. I always loved this woman. I just kind of bumped into her at a shrine in Tibet, and I just sort of thought she was really, had this wonderful, kind, compassionate face, and I just, kind of cornered her and took her picture. This is the piece I did on AIDS in Vietnam, which was a very moving experience without having ever really spent any time with people with AIDS to be in that situation. Pictures of the Gulf War. It was actually an environmental story. I was there to photograph the kind of the aftermath of all these, 600 plus oil wells that had been put on fire by Saddam Hussein. And it was just this scorched earth with all these geysers of fire shooting out of the ground. It was almost like being on another planet. And there were these animals. There was a horse and a cow and this poor hippo kind of wandering around. And these migratory birds, which normally would land on lakes of water, but instead found themselves in oil, and most of them perished because they couldn't, they had ingested too much oil. The thing about this picture is these guys are in this respirator, this suit, and all these goggles, and I'm just a few feet away with my sort of baseball cap on and my photo vest, and no protection whatsoever. It's a story I did in Los Angeles, which I didn't really connect. I'm living in New York. LA culture doesn't really appeal to me, but this is sort of some of the pictures from that assignment. Dublin, Italy. I have a show recently in Rome, and I actually photographed a lot of these for that exhibition. One of the great places in Rome is actually the cemetery. I swear, I mean, it's the art and the solitude and the emotion, and it's just an incredible. I found myself coming back from an assignment in Tibet in this very kind of mellow mood on September the 10th, and then woke up the next morning, looked out the window of my office, and this is basically what I witnessed was these buildings, literally, I mean, I went up on the roof of my apartment building and made these pictures, and suddenly, like really, I mean, almost in my neighborhood, this terrible event was unfolding. So I literally ran down within a matter of minutes and spent the rest of the day and the next part of the next day documenting. It was, you know, our minds were all disturbed and we were all in a kind of a state of shock. And I didn't have a cell phone or a radio, and actually standing there, it appeared that the entire lower Manhattan had been, you know, affected, and so the building you see behind there eventually collapsed as well. So after 9/11, there was all this renewed interest in Afghanistan because that's where the plot had been hatched. And so I went back to kind of update and see what was happening in Afghanistan because, you know, suddenly there were all these sort of foreign troops there. And so these are some pictures of before 9/11 and after 9/11. This is a dead Afghan soldier that he's holding up as kind of a trophy. And this poor fellow was literally just paraded around the street, you know, kind of humiliate him, and they eventually just shot him. So this is really what's happening. This is an insane asylum where there's no care, there's no medical staff. This is an incredible event in Afghanistan which is quite extraordinary. They flagellate themselves and in mourning for one of their fallen religious leaders. It's Herat. It really was just this devastation from horizon to horizon. But it's an incredible landscape. Again, I think I put too many pictures in this show. You can see, I mean, these are, you know, 8, 10-year-old children, and they're there already getting geared up to fight and to kill. So, a few pictures on child labor. This poor child was already out, was still working on the street, already was 8:30, 9:30 at night. He's still out there trying to sell his mangoes. This coal miner had been underground for about 12 hours, and I was waiting for this shift to change at the sort of the mouth of the mine, at the opening of the mine, and as they came out, after being underground for the whole day, the first thing this fellow did was light up a cigarette, which was really amazing. Breathing all that kind of coal dust, and then he lights up his cigarette. I don't know if he's even still alive now. This guy's in a candy factory. These are all pictures of Afghans working away. I love the sort of traditional burqa, and then the women are shopping for these sort of modern shoes. But even so, you're still not permitted to photograph them. Even if somebody saw you on the street photographing them, you could still really be in a problem, because even though they're covered, you still can't photograph them. I mean, even these pictures are a risk. It's a series on Afghans sort of traveling around. In Afghanistan, the back of the trunk or the boot is part of the car, and they jump in, and that's the way they get around. The woman on the right has just gotten out of the back. There had been 4 women. These are boys coming back from school. There must be 20 people in and on top of that old Russian station wagon. Bamiyan, where the Buddhas were until the Taliban blew them up. This is from 1992, when they were still there. Because you really don't have any permission, or culturally it's not allowable to photograph women, after, you sort of find yourself shooting more young girls, because in this culture, in this Pashtun Afghan culture, it's permissible to photograph a girl until she reaches puberty, and her parents are very happy to have you take their picture. There's no problem. It's not a big deal. But once she reaches puberty, then it's impossible. So I ended up, over my 20 years, or photographing girls. There are cases where you can photograph a teacher or a nurse or a doctor or something, but by and large, it's a real struggle to photograph. For a man, I mean, if you're a woman, it's another story, but as a male photographer, it's practically impossible. I actually ran across this girl on the street of Peshawar, Pakistan, while we were looking for the Afghan girl. And I just saw her, and I thought, my God, she has this incredible face. So I was with a film crew. In fact, it's part of the documentary. We got her address and her parents' contact information. We went back later that day, and I made this portrait of her. So this is the Afghan girl who ended up on the cover of the National Geographic in 1985. But it's really one of those once-in-a-lifetime situations where all the ingredients of a picture come together, and more, because she has this incredible set of eyes, and she's very the light was right, and the composition, and the background, and her shawl, and her particular look. And it just really, there's this kind of mix of emotions. People have thought that she looks kind of a bit of a haunted expression or surprise or whatever, but there's kind of an ambiguity to her look, and it's not kind of obvious what's going through her mind. This is actually the first picture I made of her when she was still a little bit tentative about being photographed, and the teacher in the classroom had convinced her to let me take her picture. So that was 17 years, and then suddenly 9/11 happens, and people are wondering, whatever happened to that girl? Who was she, and is she still alive? So we made this very thorough search to try and find. So we went back to the refugee camp where I had originally photographed her, took the picture, and went around asking literally hundreds of people if they remembered her. And after some time, somebody remembered her brother. This is her brother. And we met him, and he said, oh, this is my... And when we looked at his eyes, we really felt, we were onto something, because we had gotten so many false leads and other girls pretending to be the Afghan girl. So when we met him, and he said, oh, my sister's like out in the car, and they brought her in, and this is the Afghan girl now. In this picture, she's around 30, and you can see that, you have to remember that she's an orphan. Her parents have been killed, and she's also a refugee living this really awful, squalid. So that all those years of living in that kind of a situation took its toll. This is her and her brother. You can see, we had permission, and she had to be photographed to some extent, but you can see that it's not quite part of their culture for her to be photographed by a man. We were able to raise close to $1 million of volunteers around the world to basically help Afghan girls. In fact, a school was built in order to give girls education based on these donations. So this is the school, and a picture of her on the wall. So I'm on this story. It's a kind of a TV documentary, and then I got a call. They wanted me to make some pictures for the magazine. So I came up with the idea to she's at the hospital with her daughter, and she's just there in the kind of the porch, and I just shot a picture of her holding a picture of herself, and that's what ended up on the cover. Actually, this is a real thing. It was Harvard University occasionally does this sort of spoof or this sort of parody of a magazine, the New York Times or Time Magazine or whatever, and it's kind of all in good fun. And in fact, National Geographic called me and said, and they were very serious, would you be willing to photograph Paris Hilton dressed as the Afghan girl? And of course I said, no way, I would never do that. But then so in the end, they just photoshopped her face into the picture, and it was actually published on the newsstand in, I guess, 2006. So that's really pretty much the end of my talk, except for this one last picture of this It's a very famous Afghan warlord who I it's a joke. No, I always try and patronize local photographers in different countries. I'm always curious how they work at making a portrait, so I will go in and have them position me or pose me or dress me up or whatever. So in Afghanistan, they have this old technique of it's a black and white picture, but they kind of tint it in their shops. So I had a series of pictures taken just to kind of, just all in good fun. That's 1 million pictures in 45 minutes. I hope it wasn't too fast, but it was a pleasure to speak to you. And I must say, this auditorium it doesn't get any better than it. This is about a good place where I've given a presentation. So I'd like to thank the organizers for the exhibition. And in fact, the show with the lighting is really quite special. And I think it's been, I'm extremely pleased, and I hope everybody has a chance to see the show. So I think we're going to take some questions, and I'm more than happy to answer any and all questions. I'm going to put on a headset which will suddenly convert everything you say to English.
Bueno, si quieren hacer algunas preguntas, y al final Steve estará encantado de firmar los catálogos aquí que ustedes quieran. Aquí enciende.
Please.
Yo quería hacer una pregunta. Viendo las fotos, sobre todo de retratos de tantas culturas, viendo las fotos sobre todo de los retratos de culturas tan diferentes que normalmente son muy cerradas, ¿cómo realmente logras esa complicidad con la persona, que te acepten?
I think connecting with people is, it's just a question of let me take this off because I can't. Sorry. There's no point to having it on if I can't hear. I just, for me, it's a natural, it's just the way I am. And when I'm on the street and meet people, it's very natural for me. There's no hesitation or embarrassment or apprehension. It's just something which I always feel that people are happy and want to be photographed. So to me, it's a natural kind of relationship or connection. And so yeah, that's part of it. To me, it's just a very, there's no secret. It's just kind of, it just kind of comes naturally. But if there was a secret, I wouldn't tell you. No, I'm just joking. No, that's a joke. I'm just Oh yeah, thanks. Okay, here we go. Now we're talking. Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, hi. This is Sonia, right? Yeah. We have a great translator, by the way. Thank you very much for your wonderful translation. Yes.
Hola, buenas noches. Me gustaría saber qué opinión tiene al respecto de las críticas de la evolución que ha tenido el fotoperiodismo. ¿Qué futuro le ve al documentalismo?
Well, I think we're going into a new kind of unknown world. I mean, the world of magazines and newspapers is changing. National Geographic, for instance, had close to 12 million subscriptions, and now it's 5 or 4 or whatever. It's just a new time. But I do think that there's great opportunities. The internet and blogs and websites and all of this allow photographers to, connect directly with people and to show their pictures. A young photographer who may aspire to work for National Geographic, for instance, can put his or her pictures up on the internet and perhaps get some sort of interest in their work, whereas in the past, to get their work seen would be perhaps impossible. So there's there's a frontier which I think is wide open, and I think that the future is very bright for aspiring photographers or for anybody for that matter.
Hola, buenas noches. Lo mío no es una pregunta, simplemente mostrarle mi admiración hacia su trabajo. Nunca pensé que pudiera tenerlo frente a mí. Y como veo que en su carrera ha coincidido con tantas desgracias y tantos incidentes como lo de las Torres Gemelas, aparte de agradecerle que esté usted aquí, espero que no permanezca mucho tiempo en Tenerife por lo que pueda pasar.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no. We're going to go around together tomorrow and check out the scene.
The volcano explode.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think I'll stick around anyway. Yes. I got my cameras, by the way. They're all ready to go, so I'm poised and ready to strike. Yeah.
Hola, buenas noches. Una pregunta técnica. Vi que sobre el 2001 hizo fotografías de las Torres Gemelas. Imagino que hizo fotografías de negativo. ¿En estos momentos utiliza en ciertos reportajes negativos o ya está en la era digital totalmente? Gracias.
I'm fully digital now. I don't shoot film at all. I only shoot digital. I think today, the way digital cameras are, it's in fact far better than film. In fact, I think that if I'd had a digital camera 20 years ago, I could have really made it something of my life, my career, that actually made some really wonderful pictures. But because there's so much more range with digital. You can shoot in extremely low light, you can stop action, and I just think it opens up a whole new range of picture possibilities which literally didn't exist prior to the digital age.
Hola, quería regresar a la pregunta inicial y saber si pregunta a la gente, si pide permiso a la gente para ser fotografiada o si es una combinación de una reacción espontánea y de pregunta.
Well, it's always a case-by-case situation. I think if you want to capture life as it's happening, you don't want to ask permission because you'll spoil the moment. I think, kind of fundamentally, you have to respect people and you have to be very kind of sensitive to the moment and, But if I want to make a portrait, then I ask people and we embark on this thing together. It's kind of a joint, cooperative thing. But I think, walking around the streets of a village or a town, you really have to be sort of a fly on a wall and capture you know, just as people live and work and play and whatever people do, you want to capture the real life as it's unfolding, and you can't ask permission, obviously, because that'll spoil it. So, but, you know, as I said, you have to be respectful of people, and if people don't want to be photographed, and that happens all the time, then you have to respect that. And I never want to impose myself on people on the street and disturb people and upset people, because that ultimately disturbs me, and it spoils my frame of mind. I mean, it disturbs my you know, and so that doesn't, you know, so getting into that negative space is just not productive. So I'd rather just be very careful and yeah.
Hola, buenas noches. Antes que nada, felicitarle por el gran trabajo que ha hecho y por toda la fotografía que nos ha mostrado. Y tengo dos preguntas. La primera de ellas es, en las primeras fotografías vimos que había sacado fotos durante el monzón y le vimos inmerso dentro del agua con la cámara. Entonces, a veces, por ejemplo, hablo de mí, a veces cuando salgo por ahí a fotografiar y veo que hay alguna gota de agua que empieza a caer, siempre estoy con un poco de miedo para no perder el equipo, y usted, sin embargo, se le veía ahí dentro del agua prácticamente con todo el equipo. En esos momentos llegó a perder parte del equipo. ¿Cómo pudo resguardarlo del agua? No sé, es una curiosidad que tengo. Y la segunda pregunta es, en el folleto que nos han entregado a la entrada de la exposición, aparece como que usted se cosió un montón de carretes durante el conflicto de Afganistán a la ropa. Imagino que eso le tuvo que haber llevado su tiempo y sobre todo pudo haber sido bastante peligroso para usted. Durante los conflictos que ha estado sacando fotografías, ¿ha tenido alguna vez la sensación de poder llegar a perder la vida o de que lo hayan podido apresar? O sea, es decir, si ha estado en peligro. Gracias.
Well, the first question, the first answer is there is a tendency to want to protect your cameras, but you have to arrive at a place where you can't worry about your cameras, and you have to be willing to get the cameras wet or to lose it, get them. You know, you can't worry about your equipment. You can't let the equipment stand in the way of your work. So there's always other cameras. I can always buy another camera, but I can't even think about losing the opportunity to make a great picture based on the fact that I might lose the camera. The camera might get wet. So that's never. I didn't actually lose. Maybe I lost a couple. Not necessarily that's another story. But when I'm out shooting on the street, that never. Of course, you need to keep the camera dry for it to operate. But there's a point when you just have to kind of give it up and just do your work and let the chips fall where they may. Regarding, if you cover a place like Afghanistan or these types of places, you're definitely at risk, and there's multiple occasions where we were bombed, and you're wondering what the hell am I doing here? And this was like a really bad idea. But at that point, it's already once you're there, you just have to keep moving forward. That's not the time to retreat. You just have to try and do the best you can under the circumstances. But myself, my colleagues, we always work in sort of a margin of safety, working with really wonderful translators and assistants who are experienced, and you're always evaluating and reevaluating the situation and you're careful, and but you know, I mean, in fact, the scariest, the dangerous part of my career was when I was in Slovenia, and I was almost killed in a airplane accident. So Afghanistan, there were a lot of, you know, perilous times, but in fact, the time when I was almost really killed was in Slovenia. We crashed into a lake, and but I obviously got out. Yes.
¿Grito? Ah, no. Hola, yo solo le quería preguntar cómo hace para no quedarse paralizado por el sufrimiento de la gente que está fotografiando.
Well, you know, when you're there as a photo reporter and you're trying to tell a story and perhaps you're on an assignment for a magazine or a newspaper, you know, what's really important is you have to keep reminding yourself that I'm here reporting on this, informing people, getting the information out about these places and these situations. And I think that that's where your mind is. And, you know, the hope is that if people are informed about situations like, you know, Syria, for instance, or Afghanistan or whatever, that maybe some good can come of an informed populace, and that maybe if people know what's happening, can, you know, educate people. So I think that you really have to keep your mind focused on your work and not allow yourself to, you know, to at least at that particular time, to get weighed down and get your mind off of what you're doing. So you just have to, it's kind of more of a question of concentration and keeping your eye on the objective.
Buenas. Me estaba preguntando ahorita en sus sesiones de retrato cómo algunas veces, ¿sabes?, la relación entre modelo y fotógrafo puede ser dificultosa. Entonces me preguntaba cómo hace para traspasar las barreras del idioma y cómo reaccionan las distintas culturas ante su trabajo y su cámara. Gracias.
Well, I think, you know, most people in a place like Tibet or Afghanistan or India, they see me as a kind of a tourist with a camera. And if you know, smile and you know, seem like an agreeable person, most people are very open to having that connection. And I think it's very simple to, I mean, part of your question, I think the answer is traveling with a good translator or a fixer. It could be a taxi driver. I think one of my best interpreters or assistants was actually a taxi driver in Bombay, and we kind of struck up a friendship, and we actually traveled around. I mean, I hired him to translate for me. But another component which is really important is just kind of nonverbal communication and, again, smiling, being friendly. You can accomplish a lot just by, you know, joking around with people and smiling and having a sense of confidence and creating an atmosphere that this photograph that we're about to take is the most natural thing in the world. It's going to be great. It's going to be fun. And to convey that sense that this is absolutely a wonderful thing to do. And I think that attitude and that confidence kind of is infectious. And the thing about digital cameras now is that, and I don't normally do this, but if you show people their picture and they see, oh wow, that's pretty cool, that's a nice picture, then they actually really get enthusiastic about what you're doing, and it makes it even that much easier.
Vamos a aceptar las dos últimas preguntas, por favor.
Quería darle las gracias por el inmenso placer y el privilegio de poderlo tener aquí. Yo creo que para quienes amamos la fotografía y quienes de alguna manera hemos estado cercanos a su trabajo desde la distancia y desde los folletos, los catálogos, los libros, los pósters, tenerlo aquí es un inmenso privilegio. Yo le doy mis más encarecidas gracias por su presencia esta noche aquí y por tener la generosidad de poder nosotros tener el lujo de ver su exposición. Quería hacerle un comentario tal vez un poco...
No, it's great. I mean, this is, like I said, we struck up a wonderful friendship, Alvaro and myself, and I think that we're going out tomorrow to look around. I just, as I said earlier, I wish, you know, I'd been here 20 or 30 years ago, I'm sure, but I'm going to make that right and come back again and do some great work here, hopefully. Thank you.
Lo que quería decirle era que, a manera de comentario y tal vez un poco ingenuo, pero resulta fascinante cómo usted juega con el color. Ya evidentemente que hay composición, que hay un juego de luz extraordinaria, que cuando se trabaja en blanco y negro se puede lograr con el uso de la luz, pero yo siento que es mucho más difícil, y yo creo que, y me perdona, creo que hay un poquito de trampa, de que usted juega con esa paleta cromática extraordinariamente, con esos colores primarios, cómo juega con el amarillo y cómo utiliza ese amarillo con la luz, con el verde, cómo armoniza verde, amarillo, magenta, azul, violáceo. O sea, es un poema, es un poema. Yo quiero darle gracias por ese regalo visual que nos da. Buenas noches.
Well, thank you. Just a quick comment about color, and I've always, I never actually ever thought of myself as a color photographer. Obviously, when I'm looking for pictures, walking around the street, all of the components to a picture, whether it's light or composition or color, it all kind of is happening simultaneously. So I'm not really ever really looking for color photographs. My first interest is really stories and humanity and how this crazy planet that we live on. But I've never really been that interested in color for its own sake. I mean, obviously, you know, you have to develop a certain sensibility for color, but to me it's all kind of automatic, and I've never, I don't like to consciously make some clever color composition. I'd rather do something which is about people and all of that. So.
Tenía curiosidad por saber si alguna vez se ha quedado con las ganas de sacarle una foto a alguien porque esa persona no la ha dejado en ningún momento o por algún problema que le haya pasado.
Well, I can tell you about one story where I was in a train station in India, and I made a picture of a family, and I clicked it, and the man jumped up. He said, "Don't take our picture," and I kind of brushed him off and started to walk away, and he came after me and he wanted the film. And I said, "I'm not going to give you my film, you know." But he insisted, and then a crowd gathered. Everybody's, you know, shouting and screaming. And then they grabbed my strap of my camera to not let me leave. And then it occurred to me that, you know, now they not only want the film, they want the camera too, and that this thing is going in a kind of a really, you know, going sideways. And now next they're going to want to, you know, beat me up. So I gave them the film. And I've learned a lesson from that, again, it always pays to be very careful that, you know, if you don't have permission and you freak people out, that things can go go wrong. So, but ever since then, I've been extremely careful not to, photograph people that don't want to be photographed.
Gracias, Steve.
Can I just say one more thing? I'd like to just thank everybody again for coming to hear me. I thank these people on the sides who didn't get much of a chance. It must have been a weird experience to see everything, just a little sliver of pictures. But again, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm honored to have such an incredible exhibition. I am signing some books out in the hallway, so it's going to be here? Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.